with 26 mil guaranteed. So obviously that's a massive, massive domino, not only on the field, but obviously for your fantasy teams. I think it's a good move for Philadelphia. Philadelphia is obviously still a really good team. They had some weird kind of vibe going on at the end of last year where they were just fell apart kind of more than I've seen any really good team fall apart. So I think the Saquon Barkley signing with the Philadelphia Eagles kind of gives them a shot in the arm. You know what I mean? Like it kind of rejuvenates them a little bit from a offensive standpoint and kind of gives them a running back that they really haven't had in quite some time. And even if you go back to Brian Westbrook, he was more of a dual purpose guy. He wasn't a 3-down workhorse guy. Yeah, I think Saquon is really good. That offensive line is still pretty good. Jalen Hurts with the RPO action. So I think, Saquon Barkley's due for 1,300 yards, 9 touchdowns, and he's a good pass catcher if it comes down to that. Now, obviously, we've talked about Philadelphia not really throwing to their running backs a ton, but he still possesses that capability. So I think it's a really good signing. He was never going to get that money with the Giants. And there were definitely suitors out there. Baltimore, obviously, we're going to talk about what Baltimore did. And Houston kind of popped to my mind with Saquon Barkley. But yeah, crazy signing in division.
Yeah. Yeah. He winds up, going to the Eagles. I mean, he could be even more than 1,200, 1,300 yards, right? I mean, he's better than Miles Sanders ever was. He's better than Swift was. So, he could explode for even more than that. The main thing is going to be the pass catching work, right? Because I mean, Miles Sanders had 1,311 tutties, and he was what, RB 15. So that's not going to cut it. The main thing is going to be the passing game. So
Right.
if you look back at just last year, I mean, Swift had what, 49 targets, Gainwell had 37. So
Okay.
what is that? Roughly about 90 targets. Now, does Saquon get all of that? Even if he gets 75, 80, I mean,
That's the number you want.
that's what's going to be the difference, and that's what's going to vault him into that top 5, top 3. Like, so if he can score in that double-digit touchdown range, and we always talk about it, he's one of the few guys that is that 3-down back that takes the whole
Yep.
workload. And this is why we had him and Josh Jacobs relatively high in our RB rankings, because we said, like, it doesn't matter where these guys go, like, they're going to get the workload. And we'll get into Jacobs, a little later on, but now you got here Saquon and a great offense, good offensive line. I mean, they paid him. It's like, he's going to be scoring tutties. I mean, last year, Swift wasn't really like a goal line kind of guy, but they gave it to Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
They gave it to Sanders the year before. So now that all goes to
And
Saquon. And does that hurt Jalen Hurts a little bit? Like, what happens when they're down at the 1? Like, are they doing the tush push, or are they just going to hand it off to, the running back that they just wound up paying? Right.
I think it's a good move overall. And
For sure.
regardless of who's getting the touchdown, Saquon is going to find his way to that. Like you said, I said 9, you said double digits. Like he's going to find his way into that because he's that good. And also, I think the biggest point is going from the Giants to the Eagles. They have better weapons on the outside. So you can't just load up the box on Saquon Barkley. I could see him
Mm-hmm.
averaging 4.75 yards a carry this season. So that really is the key for me, because he'll have room to run. He won't be, and they won't even have to ask him to kind of be that workhorse because they have so many other good weapons. Dallas Goedert is a good tight end. We know about the 2 wide receivers. Jalen Hurts is a runner. But the question I was going to ask you just on the Saquon Barkley thing is, do you think Jalen Hurts' running ability caps Saquon to any degree or takes away from his touchdown upside?
I mean, it didn't cap Sanders from having the 1,300 and double-digit tutties. So for
And
me,
he's
like,
not nearly as
kind of
good as
just,
Saquon,
and
right?
we saw Swift like be able to bust off like good runs too. He had 1,000 yards, but now we're talking about
Yeah.
Saquon, who number one's going to be on the field more, and he's going to be doing both the rushing and the pass catching. So for me, like, I love it. He's definitely, top 3, top 5 at the least. And now what does that do for him in Dynasty? Like, that vaults him up, right? He's got to be up there. And we had him, I think, in the top 8 when we did ours. And he's got to be worth a late first. Like, at this point, like, nobody's
Yeah.
giving him up for anything less than that now. I mean,
Yeah.
and do you have him for the more than 1 year? Obviously, that's another question. But it's hard to look past the 1 year when you are talking about these running backs. Even when
But
they're
they
getting these 3-year deals, like a lot of it, there's money guaranteed, like they can
front
get out of
loaded,
these
yeah.
things after a year or two. So, it's not necessarily all locked down. And but yeah, I
No,
love
but
the move for Saquon.
I think that with this particular deal, you're looking at 2 years, and then that 3rd year is kind of a wild card with
That's
this
true.
particular contract. So I think that you could feel good about Saquon Barkley over the next 2 years. And listen, I don't see any reason because Jalen Hurts is locked up. The
Yeah.
Devonta Smith thing's going to be interesting. But AJ Brown is there. So I think they kind of wanted to give themselves, like I said before, a shot in the arm after that disastrous last season, and kind of the chemistry was all out of whack there. And I know this doesn't help fantasy wise or make of it what you will, but Saquon is a good locker room dude. Like he can kind of maybe hopefully bring those guys together because it looks like it just fell apart at the seams last year for whatever reason. On a scale of for a grade, I would give it a B plus. He is 27 years old and does have a little bit of an injury history, so I can't go to an A, but I give it a B plus considering that offense, and he's kind of what they need. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I'd give it a B
Yeah.
plus.
No, for sure. He definitely opens it up for, for that pass game. Like you said, they can't really stack the box like that. You have to somewhat respect it. I do particularly like it. I don't think it necessarily does anything bad for AJ Brown or Devonta Smith or the pass game. If anything, that could open that, like we said, opens it up a little bit more.